Hi everybody, it's Hero from the Birds back with another Shadowlands video. And in this video I'd like to talk a little bit about healer composition. And I have in front of you a replay from Warcraft logs of a Sludgefist wipe. And the reason I've chosen this as a kind of backdrop for our discussion of healer comps today is because I want to show you an encounter that demands a lot of healer attention and organization, one that has both sort of burst healing requirements and also a lot of tank sitting. One that you can sub in lots of different kinds of healing classes and come up with a specific strategy for dealing with things. And I want to talk sort of broadly about the different healers and what they bring and how they fit together with a comp. I want to also talk specifically about Holy Paladin, and we'll make some comments about the comp that you see in front of us, which is a Resto Druid, a Holy Priest, and myself as a Holy Paladin. The main feature, guys, of building a good comp is building communication, actually. You have sort of healers designed for raw AoE throughput, things like Holy Priests and Resto Druids who bring either a massive raid CD like Divine Hymn or Tranquility, or a huge recovery CD like Salvation. Or you have Healing Tide Totem for your Resto Shaman. These are all major ticket items that you can make use of as a raid, and everyone who does the kind of raiding, if you're watching this video, you probably do this kind of raiding, you understand the idea of putting together a basic composition. But one of the things that often gets lost, guys, is the idea of healing meters and throughput and pumping. People think that it's just, you just have to slam your keyboard and slam your abilities and do healing all the time, or that if you're not hitting a certain mark on the meters or on Warcraft logs that you're really screwing something up. And I'm here to tell you that really healing has nothing to do with those things. It has everything to do with planning specific moments for your healers to shine. And for a Resto Druid and for a Holy Priest, that's going to be a different kind of moment than for specifically a Disc Priest or a Holy Paladin. So as we go forward, just let me talk to you about the strengths of each of the healers. I'll do it in 0.5 speed so that we don't get to the end of the video before I finish rambling. And then we will talk about the specifics of Sludgefist itself going forward. So you should be able to see my actions. I think some people have been asking for watching what it is I do from moment to moment, so it should appear in the bottom portion of the screen there, and you can see what buttons I'm casting, all that kind of stuff. So let's begin actually with Disc Priest, which was one of the specs that was brought to the World First Race, at least one of them, in every comp, sometimes two. And with the addition of Spirit Shell, which is a talent that allows them to convert all of their atonement healing into absorbs, Disc Priest has a lot of great spots in this raid. Specifically, I think about Hungering Devourer and how the Disc Priest shields can interact with people who are affected by the debuff and have to stack with somebody to leech healing. Disc just completely negates that entire mechanic. But what Disc Priest offers you essentially is a high ceiling gameplay where you can manage specifically windows for massive amounts of burst healing. So they're effective, especially with Spirit Shell, because there's less overhealing with it, so it's almost always efficient. They bring that sort of 1.5 minute CD. It's kind of mana intensive as a class, and it really focuses on a specific set of rotations within a window. But other than that, guys, it can cover major CD moments by ramping into big heals. Sludgefist is a good example of where Disc Priest can also shine, because you can prepare very readily for all of the shouts that go out and for the damage coming in whenever he slams into a pillar. So if you're playing with a Disc Priest, you might want to line them up with doing a Spirit Shell rotation right before he smashes into each of the pillars. You should have your cooldowns up for that every single time, and that can go a long way to making sure that your healers are contributing. One big problems with Disc Priest actually is managing the interactions between their CDs and all of the other healers' throughput. If you're playing something like Council and you open with Spirit Shell to sort of completely negate all of the mechanics for the first half of a boss, whether you're killing Frida or Stavros, it doesn't really matter. All of the other healers are almost unnecessary in those portions of the fight. They can put out a few hots if they want, but a lot of the damage intake is going to come off of the shields first, and so it will be massive amounts of overhealing. So I began with Disc Priest just to note that though they provide a bubble for DR, though they have excellent efficiency through shield, especially through Spirit Shell itself, and though they can burst heal up through their atonement healing, one of the problems you'll have to contend with is the fact that they will cause a lot of overhealing if you're not planning for it. So anytime there's a Disc Priest in a raid, I would also want there to be something like a Holy Paladin, and the reason for that is the Holy Paladin can punch a lot of damage out and not worry about healing while the Disc Priest is ramping and doing their heals, and then they can supplement it later. Things like Holy Priest especially are not going to synergize very well with a Disc Priest for those burst windows, because the mastery of a Holy Priest is not being taken advantage of, and Holy Priest mastery is the cream of the crop as far as healing over time. That's Disc. I think it's an amazing spec, by the way. Very difficult to play, but you will see that you need to coordinate a little bit better with your healers, and you'll likely want your other healers to be indexing into damage for the times when the Disc Priest is doing his or her work. And the reason for that is you want to really use those ramps, guys. If you insert a bunch of healing, or if someone tranks in the middle of a Disc Priest ramp, it's a huge waste. Resto Shaman, just a really solid pick overall, in part due to the fact that we can stack AoE healing. You can see here in this portion of Sludgefist, we have everyone stacked very close together before the ranged moves back out to its portion. This is excellent for healing rain, guys, which is just a throughput monster. Shamans are really good at the beginning of a tier of raiding because nobody has any gear, and so the mastery is really powerful, but they also have really, really excellent CDs. Their Cloudburst Totem, for example, soaking up any healing that's going on and distributing it. Their Link, which is just an amazing ability to fight against any massive burst incoming, which is, again, excellent on Sludgefist for the slams. So if you are working on Mythic and you have to pile multiple CDs for people to survive the slams, Link is a really good choice. If you have a Resto Shaman, I would suggest pairing that up with a Darkness, that kind of a thing. You also have Healing Tide Totem, which is a massive throughput, and the adjustment to Shamans in this tier, the movement towards Riptide healing and Necrolord specifically, has been a huge boon for throughput on Shamans. I would say, guys, that if you don't know how to play a healing class and you're just getting into it, you want to start with Holy Priest and with Resto Shaman. Their stuff is intuitive, it's reactive, and the Riptide gameplay is pretty straightforward. You can pile up as many Riptides as you can on people, and the healing over time is just absolutely insane. So really good. You can see here, guys, on Sludgefist, as we're working away at this, we're doing a 3 heal of about 20 people, so 19. And the goal here is for our healers to just bring everybody back up to full health right when the slams go off, either when his shout is going out or when he's hitting another pillar. And that's the recommendation I would have for you when you're building a healer comp. You want the healer CDs to be used in such a way that you maximize people bringing them back up to health, but you're leveraging everyone's health pool all of the time. People often bring too many healers to encounters. They think we need to have 4 or 5 for 20 man. And in some instances, it's useful and you can cheese, like on Sun King, for example, where it's more of a healer mechanic-oriented fight, and you can just slap Guardian Spirits onto Kale and pump them full of heals. But in Sludgefist, what you're looking for is a real steady bringing of the bars back up, and just in time for every single mechanic, so that your health pool can be leveraged and you can add another DPS. So we could have gone to even 20 DPS. I think I mentioned before someone had to step out for a moment while we were doing some of these pulls. You can see here glow is pretty low, but it's reasonable. We can leverage especially our Resto Druids healing over time and our Holy Priest mastery, and I can just help to spot heal and keep people going. So as we move through to the Lust phase, we're about to hit the 3rd pillar. I think we decided to try Lust on here. What we're hoping for is a healer CD to manage each of these pieces. So Disc Priest, Resto Shaman, I'll go next to Resto Druid, which I think is probably the best throughput healer for this tier overall, guys. Resto Druids are amazing with gear, absolutely unstoppable, especially if you do the rejuvenation build where you're just essentially pumping rejuvenations around to the raid. Look here how we're able to leverage the throughput of this Resto Druid. I think at 6.2k throughput, all of those rejuvenations are going to be efficient, guys. This is exactly what you want. The main mistake we make is often people trying to snipe heals and pump as much healing as they can, and that overlaps with a lot of the work that a Resto Druid could do. So Convoke is also just an excellent button. If you're new to healing, guys, pick up Resto Druid, run the legendary for rejuvenations, and just take Convoke. Go Night Fae. It's so straightforward. You may lose a tiny percentage of efficiency overall in terms of the other covenants, but guys, it's so incredible. You just firing off wild growths, firing off free rejuvenations, firing off life blooms, and all kinds of stuff. It's excellent. And you can see here that in our strategy of leveraging this throughput, it's really quite effective up to this point in the fight. Everyone's pretty healthy going through the lust phase as we kill this boss. We had a couple of deaths. That was a chain death there. You can see the wheels start to come off in this pull. And it's important to note that that's something to always think about when you're talking about your raid. I'll just pause it here so that you can see, and we'll get Holy Shock off the screen, what I mean by this. So everything was essentially in line with our strategy of managing CDs until we had, I think someone maybe got hit by an earthquake, and our druid and one of our shamans fell over as a result of the chains breaking. Not a problem, just pick yourself up and do it again. But if we look at the healing meters at this point in the phase, as you've hit the third pillar, it should be pretty even across the board. If your Holy Paladin is doing close to your druid and you have similar eye level guys, you might be slightly in trouble because the throughput in this sort of a setup means that our druid should be pumping tons and tons of heals, whereas our Holy Paladin is likely going to be doing more spot healing, and we'll get to that in a second. But you can see the basic breakdown, and because I'm Ventir here, that's probably partly where my throughput is coming from. I can leverage it just in the same way that we would put down a healing rain or hit a trank. So we did it on Lust to help get me some damage on Ashen Hallow, but it also helped to bring the rate up. So, but you can see 3 healing guys, pretty straightforward strategy here. Echo of Light, lots of renews going out. Could be higher on Prayer of Mending, but all of the same work going together with these two. So that's our Resto Druid analysis. You want to pair a Resto Druid, guys, with big moments of AoE healing that they can prep for. You want to under heal if you can, while bringing throughput healers like Resto Druid, so that you can really leverage their rejuvenations. And I again suggest Convoke. On to Holy Priest, again, just like Resto Druid, guys, super throughput class. Unbelievably good in heroic if you're stacking more than the 20 people, because their hymn, their mastery is going to bring people up out of the dead. Prayer of Mending's changes are excellent. Prayer of Healing still fine and Circle's fine, but I think Apparatus is probably the go-to for our Holy Priests. In general, guys, just allow them to flex their muscles by leveraging people's health. Underheal a little bit if you can to bring these kinds of classes, and just let them go to work. Let them slowly bring the raid back. You need to plan out for a Resto Druid, and especially for a Holy Priest, specific times for them to be able to cast their abilities. It does us no good if you ask your Holy Priest to start their hymn at the moment when he's shouting, and it, pushes the priest away, or if he's going to grip people in with his chain grab, and your priest is in the middle of doing their hymn and half of it gets wrecked because they have to go stand with their partner. Don't do that. Find really excellent spots for them to pump their throughput. Things like when he slams a pillar, you can hymn in those sorts of sections. In the second pillar, maybe you want to do your salvation there if you're playing salve, just to bring people back. But make sure you give enough time for your Holy Priest to actually perform their hymn. It's really important. Same thing for Trank to some degree. But Holy Priests also pair really well with Holy Paladins and all the other throughput healers. Disc Priest, again, you just need to really watch yourself on getting your priests over healing. Mastery is so strong, guys, for Holy Priest. If you can stack it, unbelievably strong. Just like last tier, you can see here the Echo of Light from our Holy Priest in a renew style build, so it's not even really pumping as much echo as if you're spamming your prayers of healing. Just really strong. I like the idea of a druid and a priest working together because it's a lot of big CDs to lean on when you need them, and they're just a simplified type of healer, meaning you don't have to put a ton of brain energy into it like a disc priest as far as planning is concerned. and yet it still is really, really quite productive. For those of you who look at druids and look at holy priests and say, well, it's not what the world first raiders were using in their mythic pushes. You need DR, you need all this stuff. The truth is, guys, though those things are good and DR is fine, the skill required to perform as a holy paladin and as a disc priest in order to produce those kinds of results is actually quite high. And most of you, like me, are probably just average players. We have jobs, we do other things, we're not WoW lifers. Take a load off your back. Play one of these classes. Just enjoy the game. Play a druid. Play a holy priest. Set yourself up in a group that's going to allow for people to take advantage of these healing over time strength. Mistweaver monks, guys, I think they're kind of in a weird spot. They're sort of a throughput healer, but they're mechanically, the way to do that tends to be through fist weaving. So it has a lot of similar interactions with the melee style of Holy Paladin, and it has a lot of interactions with the setup style of Disc Priest. What do I mean by that? Well, you have to be rotational like a Disc Priest, so you want to be getting your hots out, and then you want to be kicking and resetting your Rising Sun kick so that you can get more kicks in and therefore automatically produce better results on your uptime, so you can have more uptime on all of your healing over time effects. That's huge, especially when you want to go into Vivify spam. If you've got 4 or more out, you're renewing Mist out, then Vivify becomes just an absolute monster as far as throughput is concerned. So there's that rotational element that is really complicated. Maybe I'll take some time in the next few weeks to put together a specific video that outlines some of the throughput elements of all of these classes, these healing classes. But generally, I focus on a lot of Holy Paladin stuff, and I want to make sure that I'm meeting that mark as well. But what I love about Mistweaver is if you like a complicated style and you like melee as a healer, it's a really great option. It's throughput heavy, so it's moving away from your spot healing side of Holy Paladin. It still provides the same kind of throughput threshold that a druid would provide or a holy priest, but it goes about it with the mechanics, the complicated mechanics of Holy Paladin melee abilities. So just be aware, you don't have your own throughput button like you have Revival, but it's pretty garbage overall compared to something like a Trank. It will save your raid, so I would suggest trying to keep that comp with a Mistweaver so that your Revival can always be used in emergencies. If you plan for its usage as a main CD throughout the fight, you're going to run into the trouble of not having enough throughput matched together with it, but it can be paired together with a couple of other CDs, like if you have wings or something like that, you can toss it in. I love seeing Mistweavers do fist weaving. It's a really difficult thing to do well, but it is super productive. You'll see insane amounts of throughput, and they have a slight amount of burst coming out of Vivify spam with EF as well. Just generally speaking, you can pair Mistweavers together with things like Disc Priest really comfortably, because both of those can ramp up their healing. You have pretty good CDs with Crane if you want them, so that's actually a nice pairing together. If you need a throughput style healer that can pair together with the burst healing of a Disc Priest, who's going to take up all of the healing for that moment, the Mistweaver can back off, do more preparatory work, and then complement it by bringing their Red Crane to bear, that kind of stuff. Whereas a Druid, it's a little bit more difficult, or a Holy Priest, to tell them to back off. Like, you just don't cast Rejuvenation. What should I be doing? Like, do I just flip into Boomkin? You can do that, but all of those Rejuvenations take a long time to get going. And for the Priest, if you're doing the Renew style, or if you're just doing Prayer healing, it's hard to just stop and transition because you want your Mastery to be stacking up. So Mistweaver is kind of a nice medium there. If you have a Disc Priest and you have a Mistweaver, they can work really well together. I've been saving Paladin for last because it's the class that's closest to my heart. Obviously, it's the one that I'm playing. And honestly, guys, it fits into every single comp for a couple of really specific reasons. One, it offers almost no throughput. So outside of Venthyr, there's nothing on the throughput side that Paladin offers to your group. No major massive CD, no recovery tools that are on demand. It's all just in the gameplay of keeping wings uptime high if you want high throughput, timing your Light of Dawns correctly, making good use of your Holy Shock. If you're playing Glimmer and Shockbearer, you get a little bit more throughput just generally speaking, but it doesn't have the same access to tools. What it does bring is superior spot healing. So you can convert all of your Word of Glories into spot healing if you'd like it, and you also have significant DR ability, both the AoE DR from Aura, but also the spot healing DR. There's a finesse trait that's, I think, is especially perhaps overlooked. It's the one that extends damage reduction from your sack and from your bop after you have cast those abilities. So Sludgefist is a good example of this. You can bop one of the tanks, the one that doesn't have aggro on Sludgefist, and Sludgefist, when he attacks, he punches both tanks equally, even though he has the aggro of one. You can bop the other tank, and it absorbs all of the damage that would happen from him whacking this one tank and cleaving essentially both, which is really strong. So I think we had a couple of paladins in here, and we just rotated bops on one of our tanks, absorbs all of the damage. Fantastic. Also, him slamming into one of the pillars can be dealt with almost entirely by one Devo aura, whereas you might want to put together, Link in Darkness and be prepared for people to be really low and get personals going if you have throughput healers. So there are some things that things like Druid and Holy Priest really cannot account for, and that is minimizing the damage that is incoming. Also, Mistweavers can't really do this either, but our Disc Priests and our Holy Paladins, really their bread and butter is limiting damage and being preparatory tools for these kinds of encounters. So that's why I say I think a Holy Paladin, even more than a Disc Priest actually, can fit in anywhere, because Devo Aura is the quintessential AoE raid reduction button. It doesn't hold a, Disc Priest Bubble doesn't hold a candle to it. Link doesn't hold a candle to it. And the reason for that is you have to stack everybody. So even if one or two people are out of the link, or they miss it, so they're late to the link, or the Disc Priest Bubble doesn't cover all of the people, or doesn't cover the tanks, it's limited in value. There's still excellent cooldowns, but nothing is as good as Devo Aura, or just the, Aura Mastery as a CD. But even just Devo Aura itself is really excellent. You will need to kind of swallow your pride if you're a Holy Paladin and recognize that these throughput healers, especially as the expansion goes on, are going to completely smash you on the meters. That is just going to happen. Unless you have just a god pull, and if you take Awakening, you have insane Awakening uptime, and your wings is just always popping off, you're really never going to catch these people as far as raw throughput. Nor should you. Really just get that behind you guys. Focus on other things like contributing damage. So Disc Priest and traditionally Holy Paladins have been able to pump out quite a lot of damage while they're doing their rotation. So it's what we call passive damage. Things like Consecration, just your regular rotation of Crusader Strikes, Holy Shocks, Judgment. And you can see here, guys, Hammer of Wrath is coming back in a big way. If you're the Venthyr side especially, access to this really meaty Hammer of Wrath is in your playbook, and you should take advantage of it. But also Wings Uptime is also going to afford you more Hammer of Wraths. It builds Holy Power for free, so it's just an excellent button to press, and it's contributing that sort of passive damage to your raid. I think it's the one thing that you need to focus on if you're a Holy Paladin, and you're really stuck on meters in your brain, like you really want to show up on the Parsis somewhere. It's not going to be on the healing meters largely. It's going to be on the damage side. Does that mean you should not heal in order to do damage? The answer to that is no. I just am saying to you, you need to be comfortable with the idea that your DR is largely not going to show up on the meters. Spot healing is hard to spot on the meters, but you saving someone's life with Lay on Hands, or a well-placed Martyr, or a Word of Glory, or sacking somebody is a significant contribution to the raid. The DR from just a normal devotion aura doesn't even really show up. But it's still an essential piece, especially for the World First Raiders, who thought in their minds, we have a certain health pool because of our eye level. We cannot really improve that too much while we do this content. We must have DR because things will one-shot you. So Disc Priests, Holy Paladins were excellent in that regard. But don't throw the book at the throughput healers, guys. Most of us are not good enough at this game to get away from mistakes in raids or in Mythic Plus. Most of us require some kind of help along the way. And guys, I'm telling you, these throughput healers are just so fun to play. You smash meters. You, if you get it leveraged correctly, that is to say, if your healer comp is working together correctly, you completely dominate and save people's lives across the entire board. You can see here as this wipe comes to an end, here's what the healing meters sort of look like. I just want to note that as you move through this kind of an encounter on Sludgefist, what you're looking to do is drop things like darkness, get a bit of DR for each of the pillars, and then allow your throughput healers to bring you back up. I hope, guys, that this video sort of helps to explain some of the thoughts that I have as a raid leader when I'm putting together our comp, when I'm talking about raid CDs. In general, our practice has been to do basic callouts and modify our raid CDs based on the emergent circumstances. So in general, there's a couple of stages to that. The first stage is just pulling bosses, seeing the damage profile, planning, sketching out a basic strategy. So Trank's going to go here. We'll try putting Salvation here. We'll stick Divine Hymn there. And then actually encountering it and seeing how bad it is and trying to move forward our healing CDs so that we don't have to use them until critical moments. Once the critical moment has been found, like maybe it's pillar 3 where everybody's dying, we will adjust our healing CDs to make that appropriate. So we put both Paladins Hallow on pillar 3 to get us through that portion. And that allows you to kind of work back over the course of your raid and say, okay, if Trank is necessary here, where else will it fit in the raid? So it's happening at 4 minutes. That means we can sneak another one in at the 1 minute mark. We go back to Sludgefist, we figure out where 1 minute is roughly for us. If that's in the middle of a slam, we say, okay, maybe it has to be a little earlier. We can't really push it past 1 minute because we must have it absolutely for the 5 minute mark. And so that's how we think about our healing. I think it ought to be a dynamic thing for your group. If you have just set up a static chart, you're going to run into the problem of over DPSing it sometimes, or not being able to react in other times to some emergent circumstance. So if you are a raid leader or you have the raid leader's ear as far as planning these strategies out, I would suggest trying to keep an audible going. So work out where people are at, see what the damage threshold is like, and adjust yourself appropriately. Again, guys, all of the healers are well placed in Nathria to shine. You really have to just think about leveraging their specific skills, especially things like Disc Priest that have a lot of setup, and you can completely mess up your entire raid by somebody pressing a Trank button right in the middle of a ramp, that kind of stuff. So organize yourself in a way to work as a team. That's the way that you're going to be most effective. Even if you have this massive Resto Druid pumping 6k or an undergeared Holy Priest destroying a Holy Paladin on the meters, it doesn't matter at all, guys. What matters is working as a team to solve some of these problems. I hope you enjoyed this video. We will catch you guys again next time.